Hello, in this video, I'm going to review 10 things you can do to prepare for your upcoming green card interview. My name is Rodrigo Canido. I'm an immigration attorney, and I do videos on different immigration topics and how to get legal status in the United States. So if that's something that interests you, feel free to subscribe to this channel. All right, so let's get into it. What are 10 things you can do to prepare for the interview? All right, so the first thing you can do is review copies of the forms you submitted to apply for the green card. Hopefully, right, you have copies of the entire packet. All right, I'd say it's a good idea because it could be that many months have passed, even more than a year, since you submitted the application, all right, for the green card. So you want to review that and refresh your memory what you put because the officer will likely ask you about that information. All right. It might also help you relax a little bit. Sometimes these interviews, just preparing, sometimes people start to feel a little bit nervous. So reviewing that information might help you relax a little bit. And certainly if you have, say, complications in your past, all right, you want to see how you address those in the forms. All right. So when the officer asks you about them, if they ask you about them, you're ready to go. All right, so that's the first one. The next one is bring an interpreter if you need one, right? So if you're not uh, proficient 100% in English, or the sponsor that you bring with you is not 100% good with English, then bring an interpreter. What I've seen from experience is sometimes people will try to interpret, for the sponsor themselves, and that doesn't always work out well. Sometimes it could be a little bit confusing for the officer, and they might even stop the interview and reschedule you, delaying your case. What I've also seen is that people sometimes will bring like their friend or their family member to interpret at the interview, and the problem is their family member may not be 100% good in one language or another. They may make mistakes or not understand certain words. All right, and that could be a huge problem because many times the officer needs to be very clear on your answers, and if the interpretation is not good, then that would definitely cause a problem, again, causing the officer to even stop the interview and reschedule you so you can get a better interpreter. In the worst case scenario, if you bring someone who interprets something completely incorrectly, and that actually causes the officer to believe something that is not true, that might even cause them to deny you your case. So that's a very extreme case, but it's possible. So I always say if you can bring someone who does this professionally, right? Pay them for the 2 or 3 hours, whatever it is they need. Obviously, applying for a green card is something that's going to affect the rest of your life. You want to make sure you do the process right, and for lack of a good interpretation, your case is not delayed, or in the worst case scenario, denied. Okay, so interpretation is very important. The next one is regarding your sponsor's taxes. So if you're applying through family, um, most likely you have a sponsor, and the sponsor needed to submit their taxes, right? So if a significant amount of time has passed and the new tax year has passed, right? We generally do taxes in April of every year, and your sponsor has done their taxes again. They need to bring their updated taxes and also their updated, I would say, W-2s, right? The W-2s is something one gets from their employer if they have an employer, which states, how much you made that year. All right, so you want to bring that. The officer may want to check it to see if well, I definitely say you should bring it, but the officer may want to check it to make sure that the sponsor, still qualifies financially to support you in the case. All right, so those are the taxes. The next one I would say is review the notice that you received for the interview closely. Now, in this notice, in my experience, it's not just the notice of the date, time, and address of the interview. They have a very detailed list, generally, of what you need to bring to your appointment. So you want to review that carefully. I think sometimes those lists could be a little bit confusing, So if you need help with that, it's always a good idea to make an appointment with an immigration lawyer to review that with you, make sure you have everything you need. All right. But review that closely. You don't want to go to your appointment and then you find out later you forgot this document, you don't have that document. That may cause, in my experience, that could actually cause you delay. They may later send you something in the mail asking you to submit that document. Okay. So definitely review the notice carefully. Uh, Besides that, I'd say also get there early. I know that sounds obvious, right? But if you've never been to one of these interviews or these offices with immigration, normally what happens is you pass through a metal detector, just like you would at an airport, right? You have to take out things from your pocket, you know, that type of thing. So sometimes that could take a while. And if there's like a long line, you might be waiting for a while in that line. So if you don't arrive early, you might actually be late to your appointment, right? So you don't want to get there late and then feel stressed and worried that you're going to miss your appointment because you're there late. All right, so get there early to avoid that stress and to ensure you don't miss your appointment. All right, the next one is kind of three things together. So organize all the documents you're going to take, make copies of everything, and bring originals of everything. All right. So if you've never been to an interview like this, the way it normally works in my experience is you go to a room, a small room, where the officer is there with the desk, and then you're sitting in front of the officer and they're asking you questions, and they're going to at some point ask you for certain documents. That's normally how it works. And now it's good to have all your documents organized because you don't know what document they're going to ask you for, or if they're going to ask you at the beginning, they could ask you for some documents later on. So just have everything ready to go, and I'd say maybe some type of binder. Prepare that ahead of time. Keep everything nice and neat. That way the interview goes smoothly, right? And also, right, organizing in advance helps to make sure you don't forget anything, right? You have everything, you've looked over everything, so you're ready to go the day of their interview. Okay. The next one is bringing the sponsor, the petitioner in the case. All right. In the notice, they usually tell you, from my experience, who needs to come with you. So almost always that I've seen, if you're applying through marriage, your wife or husband needs to go with you, right? But you can also apply for a green card through other family members, through like your parents or through your adult son or daughter, right? If they're U.S. citizens. Um, so, the notice will tell you who you need to bring. I always generally bring the petitioner, the sponsor, right, in the case. And then the officer will tell me whether they they need them or they don't. Okay, but I always bring them just in case. All right. And lastly, and this goes particular to people who are applying through marriage, is prepare for some of the questions that you may be asked about the legitimacy of your marriage. All right. So, questions that the officer may ask you if you're applying through marriage through your U.S. citizen husband or wife could be, how did you guys meet? When did you guys meet? When you guys dated, where did you guys go together? Do you know your wife's parents? What are their names? All right. If you're living together, they might ask you about your routine, who wakes up first. It's a very, you never know what questions they're going to ask you. But they may ask you questions that are personal questions that it's probably someone who's married would know about their partner, right? It's not a memory test or anything like that, but they do want to ensure that you have a real relationship, a real marriage. There are people that do try to apply for a green card, that do get married to apply for a green card. All right. So they want to make sure you're not just someone who got married legally just so you could apply for legal status. Right. So definitely prepare for the questions they may ask you at the interview. And if you don't know what they may ask you, again, you may want to seek an immigration attorney to prepare you. On top of that, If you have any additional documents, again, showing the legitimacy of your marriage, you may want to bring that as well. So what kind of documents? This could be new pictures you have with your spouse, going to different places together. This could be documents with both your names on them. This could be like new bank statements you have. It could be an insurance document with both your names on it. It could be tax returns with both your names on it if you filed jointly. So these are additional documents maybe you've gotten since you've submitted the initial application that you can show to the officer and say, look, here's more evidence that we have a real marriage and it's a legitimate marriage. All right. All right, so that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. And if you'd like to talk to me about your case, my contact information is below.